It's snowing in Denver, and it is bright and sunny here at the NFL Annual League Meetings in Orlando, Florida. Talked to Sean Payton for the first time since the Broncos released Russell Wilson, released Justin Simmons, and have started free agency. And there's a lot to get into, but it's, of course, all about the quarterbacks and the Broncos. A couple of big things here. The biggest, it's realistic that they trade up in the draft for potentially a quarterback. Sean Payton, when asked if the Broncos could make a move from 12, he said it is realistic to expect the Broncos to trade up in the draft. So keep your eyes out there. When asked specifically if Washington is open to trading at 2, Sean wouldn't get into specifics. And speaking of specifics, Sean also said he wasn't going to get into specifics on certain players in the draft yet. He went out of his way to say the Broncos met privately with JJ McCarthy for 4 or 5 hours. They weren't at his pro day, but the very next day they met with JJ McCarthy for 4 or 5 hours. They met with him on the board and then put him through an entire workout on his own, had him do throws they wanted to see. So JJ McCarthy, Sean didn't want to bring up specifics except go out of his way to talk about JJ McCarthy. Keep your eyes on that. Right now, Jarrett Stidham is going to compete for the Broncos starting quarterback job. That's no surprise because it's really only him and Ben DiNucci are the only 2 quarterbacks on the Broncos roster now. Sean did say he expects there to be some competition, though. Didn't say exactly who that'll be, but Jarrett Stidham will be competing to be the Broncos starting quarterback this year. In terms of if a rookie comes in and needs to sit, Sean said, that's beneficial if you have a great player ahead of that guy. So if the Broncos do bring in a rookie, it's not like they're going to force him to sit behind Jarrett Stidham. That rookie could win the job right away, is my understanding from talking to Sean. And then a couple of other non-quarterback things. Justin Simmons, Sean pretty much pointed to Russell Wilson's dead cap and said that's why we had to move on from him. It was a tough decision, but you look at the dead cap that the Broncos had to take, $53 million in dead cap this year from Russ. That's why they said bye to Justin Simmons. Coming to you from a nice, peaceful garden inside the JW Marriott in Orlando after we talked to President Damani Leech. And Damani Leech was all about good news for Broncos country. Let's think. What do Broncos fans like? They like uniforms. They like Wi-Fi. They like to see training camp. Damani Leech delivered on all 3 of those today. And the big news of the day, outside of quarterbacks, of course, Damani Leech announced that the Broncos will be getting new uniforms this season. The Broncos dropped a little preview, if you want to say, over on social media, but then he made it official. The Broncos are getting new uniforms this season. It's going to keep the same colors, so blue and orange, that's not going anywhere. It's going to keep the same logo, but outside of those things, it's going to be a full redesign. There's going to be the options for alternate helmets, so get ready to see a whole new Broncos. My guess is the Broncos are going to be announcing these and unveiling these right before the draft so that maybe that new quarterback, that rookie quarterback after they draft him, can display these. So keep your eye on that. They asked fans for input. They asked players for input, specifically captains of this team, which some of them are now not on the team anymore. They asked them for input on this, and they actually started this process with Nike and the NFL January of 2023. And so they're almost done, ready to unveil to the world. I mentioned Wi-Fi. Broncos upgrading the Wi-Fi in their stadium. Fans love Wi-Fi, so that's going to be even better this year. And then also, the Broncos, we already knew that they were redoing their facility, their practice facility at headquarters. That's going to start either right before training camp or right after training camp. They're still seeing just what's going to be the best for the fan experience at training camp because they want to make sure that fans are at training camp this year, and they want to make sure that they don't have to move training camp. They're going to do everything they can to keep training camp exactly where it is at Centura Health Training Center, where it's been really the past 20 years. So Damani Leech, president, coming in and giving the Broncos fans good news today. Just talked with general manager George Paton in this beautiful courtyard here in Orlando. Quarterbacks, that's what we talked about because, of course, that is the most important thing. And first off, George Paton took a very classy approach when talking about the team's decision to move on from Russell Wilson. He said, we took an opportunity on a guy that had won more games than anyone in the NFL history with Russell Wilson, 9-time Pro Bowler. He's had so much success. and it just didn't work out in Denver. We wish him all the best moving forward. I hope he has a lot of success in a good situation in Pittsburgh, and it just didn't work out. So the Broncos decided to move on from him, and so that was a very classy move. So now it's about finding the next Broncos quarterback, and George Paton said he's already talked with teams ahead of them in the draft about potentially moving up, kind of gauging what that price would be. He's also talked to teams about potentially trading back in the draft if they do that. So that conversation has already started beginning inside the Broncos building, but then George also talking with other teams to gauge interest of who they could trade around with. So when it comes to the quarterback market, though, they're not done, not just in the draft, but George Paton said, yes, we were involved in free agent quarterbacks just a couple of weeks ago. The report came out that the Broncos are very interested in Sam Darnold. He didn't talk about Darnold specifically, but he did not shy away from those reports that the Broncos were interested in adding a quarterback there. And here's the thing. He said, we're not done. He said there will be a veteran quarterback added to this roster, but you look around, it's the Ryan Tannehills of the world that are available right now. That's why drafting a quarterback looks even more likely for this team. A couple of other notes from George Paton. He said Brandon Jones, an elite blitzer. He also said he was playing elite football before he got hurt in 2022. They really like what he brings to the table. Same with Malcolm Roach. So Broncos continuing to add to their roster. Free agency is not done. The big splashes in free agency are done, but expect the Broncos to still make a quarterback move or two leading up to the draft, and that's when things are going to get spicy. Just on my way back from talking to Broncos owner Greg Penner, where we learned some breaking news. He said, this hasn't been announced yet, but I'm going to tell you guys right now. Broncos replacing the turf in the Pat Bowlen Fieldhouse with state-of-the-art turf. Now, he said the original turf was supposed to last 20 years. It's only been 10 years, but we got this idea from Sean Payton and Bo Lowry that we can get this better stuff in here, so let's do it. Broncos ownership is always willing to spend the money when it helps the team out, and so that's what they're doing now with this new turf. Also, Broncos in the process of getting new uniforms. Greg Penner said it was about time that they need a new uniform. So he was involved in the process. Kerry Penner was involved in the process. And Greg and Kerry are here at the owners' meetings doing what owners do, and that's vote on things, and then also just devoting every resource to the Broncos, which they continue to do. So that's going to do it from the NFL owners' meetings. We talked to Sean Payton, George Paton, Damani Leech, and Greg Penner here.